The millionaire teacher discovers the shocking truth behind the beggar girl's groin pain. On an ordinary Wednesday, Jonathan Roth was not just another wealthy teacher. He was a titan of academia, revered by students and colleagues alike. Yet beneath his polished veneer and the sparkling chandeliers of his elite classroom, a profound emptiness gnawed at his insides. The sprawling metropolis pulsed with energy, glittering skyscrapers piercing the gray clouds, while just a few blocks away, dark alleyways whispered secrets of despair. It was a jarring contrast, a world away from the lives of the privileged, one that Jonathan often tried to ignore. But the city had its own way of reminding him of its shadows. One rainy afternoon, as he strolled through the slick streets, his mind heavy with what felt like 1,000 unsaid words, he saw her. Crouched on the pavement, a young girl named Lily huddled under a faded blanket. Her eyes were the color of stormy skies, brimming with pain he could not ignore. A deep, instinctual tug pulled at him, jolting him from his reverie. He noticed her thin frame tremble, and something about the way she held herself resonated with a familiar ache he thought he had buried long ago. "Are you all right?" Jonathan asked, kneeling beside her, though he instinctively knew the answer. "Does it look like I'm all right?" she snapped, a small fire in her voice, before it fizzled out. She glanced at her blanket, worn and threadbare, and Jonathan felt a lump form in his throat. As they talked, she spoke of nights spent shivering on the streets, of hunger that twisted her stomach, and a family trapped in a cycle of neglect. Every word hit Jonathan like a cold wave. His heart raced, matching the rhythm of rain splattering against the pavement. But something else rattled within him. Memories of his own childhood cocooned in privilege, yet haunted by feelings of isolation. Revealed in Lily's eyes was a desperate honesty. No pretenses, just raw humanity. Each shared secret drew them closer, and Jonathan felt a flicker of connection amidst the gloom. His instinct fueled the urge to help, but as Lily recounted her family's plight, revealing a corrupt system designed to crush the vulnerable, Jonathan's hope twisted into dread. Could he really make a difference? The shadows of doubt loomed larger, with each detail of exploitation weighing heavy. Fear drummed in his chest, echoing like a devastating symphony. Suddenly, a chilling figure emerged from the misty alley, Lily's past stalking her with dark intent. "Where's the money you owe?" he growled, and Jonathan froze. This was the monster Lily feared, the very epitome of everything she had warned him about. Jonathan felt paralyzed, the world spinning around him. He was at a crossroads, a decision poised to shatter or mend what had started to blossom. A chance to be her savior, or succumb to the crippling fear that had chained him to a life of comfort. His heart raced, drenched in uncertainty. Could he stand against this oppressive beast, or would he back away, allowing fear to win once more? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button down there to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Jonathan stood frozen, his breath caught in his throat. The figure emerged from the shadows, a hulking presence that set his heart racing. He was a monster, cloaked in darkness, but it was the menace in his voice that rattled Jonathan to the core. Where's the money you owe? Lily shrank back, her eyes wide with terror. Jonathan felt every heartbeat echo through his chest. He had to act. But how? As he wrestled his fear, something shifted within him. A sudden resolve, a flicker of bravery born from desperation. "Hey!" Jonathan shouted, surprising even himself. He stepped between Lily and the looming threat, his body a barrier. "You need to leave her alone." "What do you know about her?" the figure sneered, sizing him up with an unsettling smile. "You think a suit makes you a hero?" Before Jonathan could reply, a sharp crack broke through the tension. The sound of a gun being drawn. The alley filled with a suffocating silence. Jonathan's heart plummeted. He had no way out. The distance between them shrank as anxiety coiled in his gut. "Back off," the figure warned. The gun pointed at Jonathan's chest, unwavering. Lily stepped forward, her bravery surprising Jonathan. "Goat!" she screamed, her small form shaking but fierce. "I'll find a way to pay you back." "Shut up," he barked, his focus unyielding on Jonathan. "You're just a teacher, a nobody." And in that moment, the world spun while the air stilled. Jonathan realized who this man was. Not just debt collector, not just a shadow. This was the man who had tormented Lily, a figure woven deep in the fabric of her suffering, a dealer in despair. He felt the ground shifting beneath him. "Wait!" Jonathan yelled, his heart hammering in a chaotic rhythm. "You're not just some thug. You're—" But the figure was already moving, a quick motion belied by the tension. He swung, and a flash of metal met Jonathan's face, everything blurred to black. Jonathan gasped, eyes flying open. He was in a dimly lit room, the pain sharp on his temple, a throbbing reminder of his recklessness. His thoughts scrambled. Was he in a hospital? No, a basement. He could feel the concrete cold under him, a damp chill curling around his limbs. "Welcome back," a voice cut through the dark. Jonathan squinted against the dim light. There she was, Lily, but not the same. Worn and fragile, yes, but there was an intensity in her gaze that left him breathless. "You shouldn't have gotten involved. Did you know that?" "What?" Jonathan stammered, confusion flooding his senses. "Where are we?" She stepped closer, her expression shifting to something darker. "The truth hurts, Mr. Roth. I didn't just choose the streets. I grew up in this world. You want to save me? You can't. Not from this." He stared, reeling. "What do you mean?" Lily's eyes hardened, the innocence melting away. "You think you can help? The system, the monsters, they're all connected. I'm part of it, more than you'll ever know." Before he could process her words, the door creaked open, pouring light into the damp room. A figure stood silhouetted against the glare, and Jonathan's heart dropped. It was the very man he feared, but he wasn't alone. He was flanked by men in suits, men that Jonathan recognized, powerful faces from his own so-called elite circles. Reality crashed in. In that instant, Jonathan understood. The shadows whispered secrets he wasn't ready to hear. It was all connected. "Welcome to the other side, Jonathan," the man said with a chilling grin. "Let's chat about the money you owe as well." And just like that, everything Jonathan thought he knew about their world cracked open, spinning into chaos. He was trapped, tangled in a web he didn't weave. What did Lily mean? What was the truth? All he felt was dread, a dark weight pressing down as he faced a truth he never saw coming. What lay ahead was a dangerous labyrinth, and every step forward would cost him more than he could ever imagine. "Welcome to the other side, Jonathan," the man said with a chilling grin. Jonathan's instincts screamed danger, but confusion clamped down on his resolve like a vice. The powerful men surrounding the figure were faces he knew. Power players in education and finance. They were the elite who whispered sweet lies while stepping over the vulnerable. Why am I here?" Jonathan's voice cracked, unease pooling in his gut like ice. "Enough of the games," the figure shot back, stepping closer. "You want to save Lily? Or do you just want to save yourself?" Lily's face twisted in a mix of despair and defiance. It hurt to see her like this, vulnerable, yet somehow fiercely alive in her truth. "You think you can protect me?" she asked, anger simmering beneath her despair. "You don't know what this world is made of." Before Jonathan could reply, the door banged open again, and another figure stepped in. A woman, sharp as glass, with eyes that glowed like embers. She didn't look at Jonathan. Her focus was entirely on the hulking man. "Mike, we need to talk," she said, her voice smooth as silk, but heavy with steel. There was a tension in the air, thick enough to cut. "Later, Tara. This teacher thinks he's a white knight," Mike shot back. The woman turned, finally registering Jonathan. "Funny how heroes end up here," she said, quirking an eyebrow. "You look like someone who's got a lot of money, but can't seem to spare a dime for the real world." Jonathan felt the heat rise in his cheeks. "That's not—" "Stop," Lily shouted, her voice trembling but powerful. "Stop talking down to him. He's not a villain. He cares." But her words fell flat in the oppressive heaviness of the room. In that moment, the darkness shifted. Jonathan suddenly saw it. Lights flashing, chaos erupting, gunshots fired from the outside. The walls trembled and the lights flickered. "This isn't how it's supposed to go," Mike yelled. The door crashed open again, but this time it wasn't just tension. It was a wave of men in uniforms, police, guns drawn, faces blank. "Freeze!" one shouted, and in an instant, a whirlwind of chaos unfolded. Jonathan's heart raced. He ducked low, fear clawing at his throat as he tried to figure out what was happening. Then, something even more shocking hit him, a loud blast, followed by the sickening thud of bodies hitting the ground. Tara lunged towards Mike, and in that split second, chaos turned to life or death. An explosion of confusion erupted. Shots rang out, and bodies fell. But as the dust began to settle, something script-flipping occurred. Amid the chaos, Tara's face twisted, not in fear, but in fierce determination. She whipped around to Jonathan, her eyes blazing. "You're involved in all this, aren't you? You don't even see it." In that moment, a dawning realization struck Jonathan. He wasn't just an innocent bystander. The web, the manipulation, he had played a part without ever knowing. "What do you mean?" he managed to stammer. "You're connected to this filth," she spat, pointing between Mike and Jonathan. "Your money, your name. You think this is all a coincidence?" Jonathan's heart sank, the painful truth clawing at him. He fought to comprehend the unraveling reality. Everything he thought he knew was gasping for breath. The police, the threats, they all circled around him like wolves, and Jonathan felt the treachery closing in. Every breath felt heavier. The walls closed in. Lily's eyes widened, confusion crumpling her features. You were involved too?" And just like that, the ground beneath Jonathan seemed to slip away. Everything blurred. He was supposed to help, but now he stood amid chaos. The fabric of trust unraveling. The dark shadows of his past loomed larger than he realized. He was tangled in something beyond his control. As the chaos dragged on, Jonathan's thoughts spun. What had he been a part of? What had he overlooked in his life of privilege? What next steps could he take to untangle it all? And in that flicker of disaster, amidst the shouts and flashes, his heart clenched, leaving him breathless with one burning question. Could he truly change anything at all? Jonathan's heart sank at Tara's accusation. The weight of her words slammed into him like a freight train. How could he be tangled in this mess? He turned to Lily, searching her gaze for answers, but the confusion in her eyes mirrored the chaos outside. The police were shouting, but the words faded into a dull roar as Jonathan's mind raced. "Stop!" he shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. "You don't understand." The room spun as the gunfire surged outside. He could feel the tension tightening like a noose around their throats. "We need to get out of here." But then, Tara's expression shifted. It twisted into something dark, something that threatened to cleave reality in two. "You want to escape?" she questioned, leaning in closer with a glint of something sinister in her eyes. "Sure, we all do," Jonathan snapped back, struggling to keep his voice steady. A flash of determination flickered in his gut. "But we can't leave Lily behind." Lily's breath hitched, her small frame shaking. "You don't know what you're saying. I'm tied to this." That pain clawed back at Jonathan's heart. Somehow, he knew that there was truth in her trembling voice. It hung over them, palpable and suffocating. Suddenly, the door burst open again, this time with a squad of armed officers storming in. Their shouts rang through the dim room. And Jonathan felt panic grip him. Could this really be the end? Could he lose everything in a hail of reckless bullets? Then came the voice that broke through that chaos, a voice familiar, yet completely out of place. "Everyone, freeze! Jonathan, it's me!" Jonathan's head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. There stood a face from the past, his brother Daniel. A distant memory, a childhood long buried beneath years of competing for their father's approval. Heartbeats banged in Jonathan's ears as Daniel raised his hands, his eyes darting between the scene unfolding in the chaos. "Let me handle this," Daniel urged, his gaze locking onto Jonathan's. But in that split second, something shifted. Tara smiled, and it twisted Jonathan's stomach. "Oh, it's you," she said calmly, as if she'd been waiting for this very moment. "Then it seems our little play has a new twist." Jonathan's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "They say family is blood," she said, a chilling edge in her voice. "But what if family is power?" In that instant, Jonathan felt a volcanic heat rise in his chest. "Daniel, what's going on?" he demanded, panic melding with confusion. "I didn't want you to find out like this." Daniel's words were laced with sorrow, but also something deeper, calculating. "You've been kept in the dark for too long about what this family really is." Lily gasped, clearly rattled by the sudden shift. But Jonathan barely registered her. "What?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "What do you mean?" A tense silence filled the room as Daniel stepped forward, pulling off a mask he had worn for too long. "You think you can rescue the broken? You're part of this narrative, John. You always have been. There are secrets beyond this. Millions tied to blood and power. No. No." Jonathan felt the world tilt. The walls felt close. He couldn't breathe. "You're lying." "I wish I was," Daniel pressed, his voice cold and steady. "What you think is a saving grace. Me, your brother. This is bigger than us." Jonathan closed his eyes, reeling. All the pieces fell into place. Lives intertwined, deceit hiding beneath false smiles. "Get back!" Tara yelled, suddenly brandishing a weapon, her glint unyielding. In that moment, time stood still. Jonathan's stomach dropped as realization hit him like a tidal wave. His brother was no ally. He was a puppet master orchestrating chaos. You're the one behind all this. John, listen. But before he could react, Tara acted. The crack of a gunshot echoed painfully as something shattered in that tiny room. Jonathan's reality splintered. In a heartbeat, everything turned upside down, and he was left staring wide-eyed as the chaos took on a new, chilling form. He didn't know if he could trust his own blood. And with that single act, the course of everything shifted, leaving him gasping for breath, the truth looming just out of reach. Was his brother truly a foe? What now? Each revelation left a gaping wound in his heart, making the stakes higher than ever before. As the layers of this world peeled back, a new question echoed through his mind. How deep did the betrayal go? Jonathan's heart raced as the chaos erupted around him. He felt the room spinning, the weight of betrayal anchoring him to the ground. Tara's gun sparkled under the dim light, and uncertainty flooded his senses. "You're lying," he yelled, desperate for clarity. "I wish I was," Daniel replied, his words slicing through Jonathan like glass. "You've always been a part of this, John. You just didn't see it." Tara took a step back, her eyes darting between Jonathan and Daniel, gauging their reactions. The tension in the room crackled like static before a storm. "Let's talk about the money," Mike sneered, bending forward. But another loud bang rattled the walls. Gunfire from outside. It wasn't just chaos. It was full-blown disorder. "Stay down," Jonathan shouted, heart pounding like a drum. Confusion filled him as he dropped to the ground. But then, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. There was a deafening explosion, and the entire building shook. Dust fell from the ceiling as darkness enveloped them. Screams echoed, mixing with the sound of shattering glass. Jonathan felt a cold rush of air before the world turned upside down. As the dust began to settle, Jonathan held his breath. For a fleeting moment, silence reigned. Then the door burst open again. But this time, it wasn't just police. It was another group entirely, armed, coordinated, and dangerous. They stormed in with authority, and masks obscured their faces. Jonathan's heart dropped. The room flooded with fear. "Get down! Get down!" one of the masked figures shouted. Instinct kicked in, and Jonathan shoved Lily down, protecting her with his body. "Michael!" one of the masked men yelled. But it wasn't directed at Mike. It was aimed at Daniel. "We have orders to bring you in. Move!" Jonathan's mouth went dry. He blinked through the haze of confusion. Orders? What was happening? "Daniel!" Jonathan shouted, but his brother's face twisted into something he couldn't understand. A mix of anger and fear. "John, it's a setup!" Daniel yelled as he backed away from the masked men. "They're coming for all of us." And just like that, Jonathan's heart shattered. His brother wasn't just involved. He was the target. But why? "Betrayal hurts, doesn't it?" Tara's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Family ties can strangle, John. Just wait and see." Suddenly, before anyone could react, the masked figures opened fire. Bullets flew, shattering the frail peace. That lingered merely moments before Jonathan instinctively ducked, adrenaline surging through him. But then, amidst the chaos, a shocking clarity gripped his heart. He realized the truth wasn't just between him and his brother. It stretched deeper into the twisted core of their lives. Jonathan's pulse quickened as he felt the full weight of betrayal wrap around him like a vice. In a frantic moment, he glimpsed Lily's face, a picture of terror and determination. "We need to move," she cried, tugging at his arm. He nodded, fighting against the turmoil in his soul. He had to get Lily out. Yet as he turned back to Daniel, their eyes locked. In that fleeting moment, everything fell into place. Daniel wasn't just his brother. He was linked to the very darkness they all faced. Before he could speak, a scream shattered the air. It was Tara, collapsing to the ground, clutching her leg. Blood pooled quickly, and the world tipped once more. Jonathan's heart raced, not just with fear, but with rage. "Why?" he shouted, realizing he was surrounded by enemies, including someone he once thought was family. "We have to go, now!" Lily screamed, pulling him towards the exit. But as they scrambled for safety, a new thought gripped Jonathan. If Daniel was their enemy, who could he trust? As they burst outside into the chaos of the street, Jonathan's mind raced. What lay in store for them was a labyrinth of betrayal, a bitter realization that all he knew was about to unravel. Fate had twisted too far, changing everything in an instant. Each heartbeat echoed the question, could they even escape this storm unscathed? Or was the real danger hidden within their own blood? Jonathan and Lily burst through the door, the chaos of the street swallowing them whole. Distorted voices and screaming sirens filled the air, clashing with the last echoes of gunfire. Jonathan's heart drummed wildly in his chest, a frantic reminder of just how wrong everything had gone. "Over there!" Lily shouted, pointing down an alleyway. Shadows flickered as they sprinted toward it, the potential sanctuary beckoning through the haze of smoke. Jonathan felt the cold bite of fear. They had to find a way out, anything to escape this madness. But even as they dashed away, his mind raced. Daniel, Tara, the truth, it all tangled within him like strings in a web, pulling tighter and tighter. As they reached the alley, a flicker of movement caught Jonathan's eye. It was Tara, backed against a wall, blood staining her clothes like a sinister badge. Her expression shifted, morphing from anger to something darker, something chilling. She was scared, but not in the way Jonathan expected. It was something more calculated. Before he could react, she laughed, a harsh sound that seemed to cut through the chaos. "Did you really think you could run?" A gut punch of realization hit him. "You're not just playing games, are you?" Jonathan spoke, his voice quaking with both anger and fear. Tara smirked, raising an arm as more figures emerged from the shadows. Masked faces flanked her, all eyes locked onto Jonathan and Lily. "You're in deeper than you know. Welcome to the real game." "Game?" Lily echoed, disbelief and panic slithering across her features. Suddenly, the world shifted. A loud explosion erupted at the other end of the alley, the air igniting in bright light and deafening sound. Jonathan instinctively grabbed Lily, yanking her to the ground as debris rained down. When the smoke cleared, Jonathan looked up, hardly able to process the blurred scene. His heart stopped. The men that had been after Daniel, they weren't just criminals. They were inside agents, plotting something massive, something that reached far beyond their little world. Tara stood, her smile now cold and triumphant. "What you don't understand, little teacher, is that you're just a pawn in a game played by kings. You're in our world now, and you can't escape. What's happening?" Jonathan's voice was thick with desperation. He struggled to understand as his mind raced. The lies, the connections, it all bore down on him like a weight. Before he could think, the alley behind them filled with loud voices. Police, armed officers swarmed the scene, weapons raised. "Drop your weapons! On the ground!" One shouted, their figures stark against the dusky skyline. The tension heightened, twisting the air around him. Jonathan took a step back, heart hammering. "No, you don't understand, they're—" Tara lifted her gun toward the officers, a manic glint in her eye. "Fools! You think you can take us down? You have no idea what you're dealing with. Jonathan's whole world flipped. As gunfire erupted in that narrow alley, it all twisted and twisted again. Daniel, Tara, the money, the games. It all became a nightmare closing in. But then, amid the chaos, a voice rang out from the crowd that froze Jonathan in his tracks. "Stop! Everyone stop!" Daniel emerged from the shadows, hands raised, face a mask of urgency and fear. "Daniel!" Jonathan yelled, relief flashing through him. But it was short-lived. His brother had a hard look in his eyes, a jarring contrast to the boy he once knew. "What did you do?" "I didn't mean for it to go this far," Daniel shouted, stepping closer to the chaos. Desperation in every word. They knew everything. "They're coming for all of us." Jonathan's mind spun. Was Daniel protecting them, or just buying time? Then Tara let out a manic laugh, her guns still trained on the officers. "Do you really think you can save him?" She spat at Jonathan, her eyes narrowing. "He's the one you can't trust, the one who put you here." And just like that, the truth shattered once more. Jonathan's breath caught. The revelation struck harder than any gunshot. Daniel gestured wildly. "I didn't want this. I was trying to protect you." But Tara's laughter echoed, mocking everything he thought he knew. Protect him from what? The truth? The family's secrets? Jonathan felt the ground beneath him tremble. What if everything was a facade? His brother was supposed to be his ally, but what if he was the very heart of this treachery? Everything spun faster. The alley closed in. Each heartbeat thumped louder in his ears, fueling a dizzying confusion. "Leave!" Tara screamed, her voice rising over the chaos. "You're just a schoolteacher playing in a world you don't understand." In that moment, Jonathan felt the world split in two. The figures around him shifted. Secrets bubbled to the surface, and he was left with one burning question. Could he trust anyone in a game where betrayal had become the only rule? As the chaos embraced him, he realized the path forward was blurred. The truth loomed like a dark cloud, and every step he took drew him deeper into a labyrinth of deception. The moment felt electric, charged with fear and turmoil. Jonathan stood frozen, trying to wrap his head around everything. Tara's gun, Daniel's face twisted in anger, Lily's terrified eyes. Every heartbeat thundered in his chest. "Why, Daniel?" Jonathan shouted, feeling the panic rise. "Why are you doing this?" "Tara's right. You don't see the bigger picture," Daniel shouted back, his voice deepening as he stepped closer. "This world we're in, it's a game, and you've always been a key piece." "She isn't a pawn," Jonathan yelled, gesturing to Lily. "You can't treat her like that." Tara laughed, her smile cold and menacing. "This isn't just about you anymore, teacher. This is about survival. You want to play the hero? Fine. But heroes fall first." Outside, chaos reigned. Sirens screamed and gunfire exploded, rattling windows. Jonathan felt the pulses of panic thrumming through the air. He squeezed Lily's hand tightly. She was shaking, and he saw the fear in her eyes. They needed to move, needed to escape this nightmare alive. Suddenly, Daniel turned sharply, eyes blazing with a fierce light. "You think you understand? I've seen things, John. I've been involved in things you can't even imagine." Another explosion rocked the alley, sending debris flying. Jonathan shielded Lily as the shockwave crashed over them. Dust swirled, filling the air with grit. But through the haze, Daniel's next words cut through the chaos. "They're not coming for me." Jonathan's chest tightened, Fear and confusion hit him hard. Why would they come for me? Because, brother, you're the one who holds the key to it all. The frantic edge in Daniel's voice made Jonathan's skin crawl. And just like that, Jonathan realized something was off. Why would Daniel, his own brother, say such a thing? The air thickened with treachery and truth in equal measure, twisting like a knife in Jonathan's gut. Then, a loud bang rang out from the side. A masked intruder burst into the alley, gun raised high. "Back off, all of you!" The scene froze. Tara's manic laughter and the panicked shouts faded into a silent void. Jonathan's heart hitched in his throat. It was like a movie playing out. One where he felt trapped in a role he never wanted. Without thinking, Jonathan dove in front of Lily. He couldn't let her get hurt, not now. "Get down!" he shouted. But then everything imploded. Gunshots rang out in futility. Bodies fell. The chaos was unrelenting, crashing down on him. In an instant, Tara was hit, falling to the ground. Panic clutched at Jonathan's heart, fear charging through his veins. This was no longer about survival. It was a fight for truth. A battle against his own flesh and blood. As Tara gasped for breath, her hand clutching the wound on her side, she locked eyes with Jonathan. "You think you can change it? You can't outrun what you are." Her voice was cracked, but forceful. Pain twisting around her words. In that horrifying moment, something triggered within Jonathan. Was it true? Did he really hold the key? Tara looked frail, but she grinned, mirthless, twisted. "You have a choice, John. A choice that will change everything." Before he could respond, a deafening blast erupted from behind him. Jonathan spun, adrenaline coursing through him. A bright flash, searing heat, and an agonizing scream shattered the air. "Lily!" he screamed, his voice raw with terror. When he turned back, everything was different. Daniel was gone. The masked men were now advancing, and anything that felt safe vanished in the heat of the explosion. What had just happened? A lump formed in Jonathan's throat as he surveyed the chaos, realizing the truth. Everything he thought he knew shifted, collapsing under the weight of betrayal. Daniel wasn't just an ally, he was a treacherous link in the chain. As he searched for Lily, confusion coated every corner of his mind. The truth he so desperately sought was slipping away. The stakes were higher now. In a heart-stopping moment, everything fractured, leaving Jonathan gasping for a way out. Would he ever find Lily? Could he change anything at all? The night cracked around him, and despair chased his thoughts. Where could he hide? And what fresh horrors awaited them? The answers vanished like smoke, leaving behind a tangled web of grief and uncertainty. The moment hung thick in the air, heavy with dread and uncertainty. Jonathan crouched low, heart racing, struggling to absorb the chaos that enveloped them. Lily clung to him, trembling, her wide eyes filled with fear. Shadows flickered in the alley as the adrenaline surged through him, but then came the sound. A deep rumble, almost like thunder, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Jonathan's thoughts collided together. What now? Then it happened. A blinding flash erupted from behind him, illuminating the entire alley in a stark, white light. He spun around, eyes narrowed against the brightness. Just as quickly, it vanished, and there came a blast that felt like a wrecking ball slamming through his chest. The explosion sent him and Lily tumbling back, desperate to shield her from the chaos as debris rained down around them. "Get up," he yelled, panic clawing at his throat. He pushed himself up, only to find Daniel there, silhouetted in the dust and smoke. Jonathan's mind raced, longing for answers, but his brother didn't seem right. "Why are you still here?" Jonathan shouted. "We have to go now!" But Daniel's face held an intense focus, eyes flaring with something that looked like pain and conviction. "It's too late," he shouted back, voice hoarse with urgency. "They can't find you here!" Before Jonathan could process his brother's words, the crowd murmured unease, shifting anxiously behind him, and then it happened again. A sudden collapse. Jonathan's heart sank. The wall to his left crumbled, revealing a hidden passage veiled in smoke. The masked men moved closer, tension rising, their eyes glinting with a predatory edge in the fading daylight. "Run!" Jonathan urged Lily, but she hesitated, her gaze flicking between him and Daniel. "What about him?" she asked, fear tightening her voice. "Forget me. Just go!" Daniel shouted, desperation lining his features. But Jonathan stood frozen, the undeniable connection of brotherhood pulling him back. Suddenly, Tara, bloodied but fierce, rose, her hand clutching a pistol. "You think you're safe? None of you are," she cried out, voice echoing through the alley, almost mocking. But that's when everything shifted again. The crowd parted, panic colliding with confusion, as the entrance behind them exploded with new life. A group of armed officers stormed in, led by a familiar figure, one Jonathan never expected to see. "Detective Casey?" Jonathan blinked, disbelief coursing through him. The detective who had been involved in multiple investigations connected to his family. How was she here? "Why are you—" The detective's steely eyes met his. "We're here to clean up the mess your family made, Jonathan. All of it." Jonathan's stomach twisted painfully as the reality washed over him. His family wasn't just involved. They were at the heart of this chaos. The money, the power, Daniel, everything had been a part of something darker. The crowd erupts once more, voices crying out in panic. But before Jonathan could wrap his mind around what this all meant, Detective Casey pointed directly at Daniel, her expression dark and resolute. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, Daniel. You're linked to everything." "No!" Jonathan screamed, his voice breaking. "Don't take him. He's my brother." But the dagger had been delivered. Daniel's face twisted, power crumbling beneath the weight of betrayal. "You don't understand, John. I did it for you." A sudden scream pierced the air, and Jonathan turned, just in time. Lily's eyes widened in horror. A figure rushed forward, a masked thug gripping a weapon, aiming it right at her. "Get down!" Jonathan lunged, adrenaline surging through every part of him. But the world slowed as the thug's finger tightened on the trigger. A deafening shot rang out, and everything dimmed. Jonathan froze, unable to breathe, heart shattering at the sound. The drama of the moment enveloped him, the threads of their lives twisting tighter and tighter. Was this truly the end? The chaos ripped into silence, leaving behind only the echoes of pain. Jonathan's eyes darted around, lost in the confusion. Would he lose Lily? Would he lose everything? But then came a sound, a gasp, low yet full of gravity. Jonathan's heart stopped. He turned back to Lily and saw her. She stood, but something was off, something different. A grin tugged at the corners of her mouth. "You're all fools," she whispered, the tension wrapping around her words, sharpening like a dagger. And just like that, everything shifted again. Jonathan's stomach twisted violently. What was happening? Lily? Jonathan choked out, confusion suffocating him. She was in on this? The revelations unspooled quickly, the dogged truth he desperately wished he could deny. "You've played right into my hands, and now you'll pay the price." The world around him blurred. Everything flicked. All the relationships, the trust, all shattered in a breath of chaos. "Willie, no!" he screamed, horror unraveling within him. But in her eyes was a glint of something wild, something dangerous, and as shattering truths unfolded faster than he could grasp, Jonathan realized the web was tangled beyond anything he could fix. The real game was only just beginning. Jonathan felt the world twist around him, confusion like a storm inside his chest. "Lily," he uttered, searching for the girl who had once seemed fragile but now stood before him, unchanged yet different. Her eyes glimmered with a sharpness that cut deeper than he could fathom. "You're all fools," she echoed, her voice low, tinged with something sinister. The weight of her gaze pinned Jonathan in place. This wasn't the Lily he'd fought to protect. This was something darker, something he didn't understand. Then the air shifted, filled with the acrid scent of gunpowder still hanging heavy from the chaos. "What are you talking about?" he stammered, desperation creeping into his tone. "You're not like them." "Oh, but I am." Her lips curled into a chilling smile. "They've been grooming you, Jonathan. You just never saw it." A piercing confusion sliced through him. Grooming? For what? He couldn't catch his breath. The words lodged like a rock in his throat. Everything he thought he knew was unraveling in front of him. Before she could respond, a deafening crash reverberated through the alley, slamming Jonathan into the concrete wall. Hard. Pain shot through his body, but it was more than physical. It was a slamming realization that he was tangled in a web much larger than he ever imagined. Voices erupted around him. Fear. Chaos. But the voices faded in and out, distorting the reality he thought he had. His eyes darted between Tara, Daniel, and the masked figures, but they all blurred together. And then came the laugh, a painfully familiar sound breaking through the noise. Jonathan turned, but it wasn't Tara, or even Daniel. Moira, a dark figure from this past, stepped forward, emerging from the shadows like a ghost. "Surprised to see me, aren't you?" she teased, her voice dripping with mockery. "Back from your fancy life to join the fun?" His heart raced. Then, shock of her presence was like ice in his veins. "Moira, what are you doing here? You were naive to think you were safe away from us." She stepped closer, eyes gleaming with a dangerous light. "Your family's empire isn't just influenced in the shadows, Jonathan. You were meant to take your place in it." "Stop! You're lying," Jonathan shouted, forcefully shoving the painful truth away from his mind. "I'm not like you." "Oh, but you are," she grinned. "Everything I did for you." "No." His voice cracked, panic igniting inside him. He felt the walls closing in. The weight of generations of corruption and betrayal came crashing down around him. A scream echoed through the alley, a sound more shrill than any before. Jonathan turned just in time to see Lily collapse to the ground, a figure behind her spinning away like smoke in the wind. Shock hit him like a fist to the gut. "Lily!" he yelled, rushing to her side. The world moved in slow motion as he knelt down, heart racing. She lay still, a crimson bloom spreading across her shirt, her face pale as death. "Willie!" he cried again, shaking her gently. "Please, don't leave me." But it was too late. Moira laughed, a low, cruel sound that echoed through the alley, wrapping around Jonathan's frantic heart. "You see? You're too late. Everyone you know is expendable. This was always the game." "No, no." Jonathan's voice broke, despair flooding through him. The ground felt unsteady under his feet, and everything blurred. Emotions churned together in a maelstrom: grief, betrayal, fury. Lily's eyes fluttered, a glimmer of consciousness shining in her gaze. "John," she reached for him, fingers trembling as she struggled to breathe. "You have to fight." Fight? The world spun, darkness creeping in at the edges. For what? You're hurt! But her grip was fading, and something in her gaze shifted. Find the truth, and save us. And just like that, she slipped away, her hand going limp in his. Jonathan felt a scream building deep inside him, echoing the crashing realization that everything he had fought for, everything he believed in, was spiraling into darkness. Then another shockwave rocked Bialy with a heaviness in his heart. Jonathan looked up. A figure burst through the chaos, one he didn't expect, a uniformed officer, arm raised. Instead of fear, all he saw was determination smoldering in her eyes. "Jonathan," she shouted, voice piercing the turmoil. "The truth is darker than you know. Trust no one." Jonathan blinked, confusion washing over him. Was she friend or foe? But before he could process, the world snapped into chaos again. A flash of metal, a crack of gunfire. He didn't know where to turn. All he knew was the stakes had risen more than he ever thought possible. And standing there, heart racing in a torrent of emotion, he realized he was no longer just a teacher. He was thrust into a dangerous game, with rules he didn't understand. The spiral turned darker. The shadows whispered secrets, and he was the key to it all. In the dim light of despair, the answer lay ahead. A path fraught with uncertainty, where betrayal lingered at every turn. And as he stared down that road, the only thought piercing through the pain was, could he truly find the truth before it consumed him? The chaos was a swirling storm, everyone screaming, the air thick with smoke and fear. Jonathan crouched next to Lily, whose eyes flickered but stayed locked onto his, fighting to hold on to life. "Stay with me, please," he pleaded, desperation clawing at his throat. The world morphed around them, a blur of confusion, but all he could focus on was her. "Find the truth," she whispered, her voice fading. Like a distant echo, the warmth in her hands slipped away, and Jonathan felt a wave of panic crash over his heart. "No, no, no!" he yelled, shaking her gently. "You can't leave me like this!" But her eyes closed, and the flicker of hope dwindled. Jonathan pressed his forehead against hers, anger surging within him. He needed answers. He needed to move. But crippling grief clouded his mind. In that moment, he heard voices shouting, breaking through the haze. The detective was storming through the battered crowd. Armed officers fanned out, preparing for a confrontation. "Get down!" she barked, and Jonathan instinctively shielded Lily. But a sudden weight in his heart made him look away. "Stop! Let me talk!" He raised his hands, stepping forward. "There's been a misunderstanding." "Tell it to the judge," one officer shouted, ignoring him. Panic rose again. Everything was spiraling, and Jonathan felt trapped. Would he lose Lily for real? But then, something shifted. A flicker in Lily's eyelids, a yearning glance as she was pulled back by reality. "You have to fight. This isn't over." Before he could respond, the masked men closed in. Jonathan felt a surge of rage. They had placed him in a game of chess, each piece tumbling down as he struggled to find his own. "Enough!" he roared, anger propelling him forward. "I won't let you take her." "Foolish boy," Tara hissed, her gun aimed unwaveringly. "You still don't see it." "No, I do," he shouted back, his heart pounded fiercely, each breath sending waves of determination crashing over him. "You're nothing but puppets dancing on strings." The scene shifted, a flurry of movement from the officers. They rushed forward, a wave of relentless force. Jonathan could barely breathe. Just as fear threatened to overpower him, he lunged to Lily, grabbing her hand. "Get ready." In that electrifying moment, Chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed, cutting through the air like a blade. Jonathan pulled Lily behind him, shielding her from the chaos. In a whirlwind of movement, he pushed forward, dodging bullets that shattered the remains of their world around them. "Move!" he shouted, propelling them toward safety. But the conflict was relentless, each explosion sending aftershocks of terror rippling through him. Then, amid the chaos, he spotted Daniel, disheveled, undeniably lost, but still fighting. "John," he yelled, "you can't trust her. We need to get out now." "Daniel," Jonathan cried, pain and fury twisting together, "you betrayed me." "No, I did this to protect you," Daniel snarled back. "The truth cuts deeper than you know. Don't let them win." With gunfire ringing out around them, Jonathan felt the pang of betrayal, but he knew he had to choose. His loyalty had to lie with Lily, the fragile girl who had sparked a fire inside him. He took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. The alley exploded with sound and fury, shadows swallowing them whole. "Keep moving," he urged Lily, desperate to escape the collapse of their world. Just as they vaulted toward the safety of the street, Lily turned, her eyes blazing. "It's not just about survival anymore. We need to uncover everything." Jonathan met her gaze, feeling the spark of hope ignite amidst the despair. "Together," he promised, "we'll tear down the lies." With renewed energy, they broke free into the dim light. The chaos was still at their backs, but they were alive. As the sound faded, Jonathan looked at Lily. Determination ignited in his chest. "Let's see it all burn down," she smirked. And in that fierce moment, Jonathan understood what they had to do next. There was no turning back from the truth that awaited them. With hands intertwined, they stepped further into the unknown, a journey lit by the flames of deceit, ready to chase that. Shadows into the light, and as their hearts raced beyond the chaos, something else stirred. What truths would they find? You must subscribe to the channel immediately, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Give it the power it needs. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Tell us what you think. Don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know about this ending. But please stay with us. You can now click on another exciting story at the end of this video. An adventure that's just waiting for you. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel with these actions.